Hello, welcome to Kate's Egg. Today I am in Niagara-on-the-Lake and I'm with Bill Riddlemeyer, founder of Southbrook Vineyards, which is just incredible, and your vineyards are spectacular.
Thank you very much. We're Canada's largest organic winery and proud of it.
That is fantastic, and what you're doing with sustainability is also really remarkable.
Thank you. To me, it's incredibly important. And one of the things that we really want to do is to show other people what's possible. What I really want is somebody else to come in and go, oh, I can do it even better than he can.
Yes. So today I'm going to be taking a tour of Southbrook Vineyards and learning all about the winemaking process.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. What happened over the last 2 years is we've realized that we can build up our customer base instead of selling it to the LCBO, the liquor board, and letting them sell it, and they treat it as a commodity. I would much rather create and foster the relationship with our customer, and if I do a good job, then I can expand. We do lots of crazy extra things. So early on in COVID, everybody was ordering wine online. We were sending it to Canada Post. It was being delivered, not doing a particularly good job. I was getting bored in my office, so I started delivering wine.
That's amazing.
I've done about 160,000 kilometers since COVID started.
Wow.
My son now does half of it. He does Toronto, and then I do everything from London, Ontario, which is 2 hours west of here, to Pickering, which is 2 hours east of here, almost to Barrie, which is 2 hours north of here. And every week I just get in my car and deliver wine, and I get to greet all of our customers, talk to our customers, create that relationship with our customers. That to me is what it's all about.
That's fantastic.
You know, the price of wheat has gone way up.
Yes.
So that's good for the farmer, except that it's allowed the bread producers to double their prices because, wheat's doubled in price. Well, there used to be about 6 cents worth of wheat in a loaf of bread. So it's now gone up to 12 cents, and the bread makers have added $2 because they go, well, our wheat's costing us more. Those guys are the ones that are making the money. The millers, the distributors, the truck drivers, the grocery stores, they're all making huge amounts of money.
Exactly, not the producer.
Right. So when we got out of the cash crop business, when I first got into the cash crop business, which was the late 1970s, I graduated from university, Guelph Ag College. We got $4.05 for a bushel of corn. And the next time it hit $4.05 was 2008. You know, the price had just gone right down because, you know, if you're in Iowa, you can produce corn a lot cheaper than we can produce it in Ontario.
Yes.
But and then I would go to sell my corn, and they'd say 84 cents less than Chicago. it's can't do it.
You have to have a specialty product.
Well, and you have to build your brand. You have to be able to sell it, not even directly to consumer, but you've got to build your brand. So the person that can make the money is not the banana grower, it's Dole.
Yes.
It's not the wheat farmer, it's Wonder Bread. You know, it's building that brand is what's important.
It's all behind the marketing and the name you establish.
Absolutely. Somebody, when I got into the wine business early on, said, you know, to be a really successful winery, you've got to have really good grapes, you've got to have really good winemaker, you've got to have really good marketing, and if you don't have number 3, the other 2 don't matter.
That's a very true statement.
Absolutely. So we've realized that, and also, as you can tell from this video, I like talking to people, and it's what I enjoy doing, and it's that creating a relationship with our customers. But it also gives me a platform where I can talk about what I want to do. Biodynamics, same thing. Biodynamics is a sort of a mystical system of agriculture. It's got all sorts of things that go into it. But really what it is the way our great-grandparents farmed. You know, they knew you couldn't have a wheat farm without having animals on it to get the manure to keep the fertility up. They knew because they didn't have anything better, that you're going to get your coldest day of the month on a full moon. They knew that, I remember being told when I was 3 that if you wanted the tops of plants, you plant during a waxing moon, as the moon goes from new to full. And if you want the roots of plants, potatoes and stuff like that, you plant during a waning moon. So when it's going from full to, whether it works, our 75 generations before us used to do it. So that's a lot of what biodynamics is about.
Okay.
And then we thought we would really work towards sustainability as well, because my generation has left a real mess.
Yes.
And it's I think it's up to me. I always say to people that when I was growing up, younger than you, my mother would come into my brothers in my room and she'd go, if you make a mess, it's up to you to clean it up. And so that's kind of the way I want to live my life. If I've made a mess, it's up to me to clean it up.
And it's really great how you're incorporating sustainability throughout your whole vineyard.
Absolutely.
And the winemaking process.
What we didn't want to do was sort of go, oh, that looks something interesting. Let's do this as far as sustainability is concerned. It's everything that we've done has been focused on sustainability. It's
really the foundation of what you're doing.
Absolutely. If you look, for instance, it's harder to see now, but if you look at our vineyard, now this is fairly young, so it's not in its final form, but we try not to work the soil between the rows. In the winter, what we do to try and protect the vines a little bit is we'll hoe up in the fall. You see how we've taken one furrow and pushed it up into here.
Yes.
It protects the base of the grapes. We'll come along and as soon as it gets dry and pull that back a little bit. But the rest of the stand is mostly wildflowers. So there's clover in here, there's mustard in here. Sometimes we'll plant some radish, there's going to be some grass. Basically, we're not using any herbicides because we're organic, but we don't want herbicides. We want to establish that mat of soil. And then sometimes what we'll do is if we're worried about moisture and if you get too much rain, we don't want it to go straight down, we will work every second row. So this one would have been worked last year.
Okay.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But again, we don't want to disturb too much of the soil. Every time we expose the soil to oxygen, you're losing organic matter. When we bought this property, I'm going to say we were about 2.5% organic matter. In the soil, we're now somewhere north of 5.
Really?
Yeah. And, it used to be that you'd pick up a clump of soil. Now, you're going to Cornell. What are you studying?
I will be studying, actually minoring in soil science and horticulture. I just find this fascinating.
So, if you'd come in here 10 years ago, that would have come up. It would have come up. It would smear, like the bottom of that there. And yet now the soil structure is just about perfect. Everything can grow. The organic matter is so much better. In the springtime, I get to buy 50 tons of manure because that's what I need for the vineyard. That to me is what a living farm is to have that combination.
And that's what you use as your fertilizer.
Yeah.
And to keep the soil going and the vines healthy.
Exactly. Over there, do you see? There's a bird, right? He's just about halfway between us and the...
Oh yes, I do see the bird.
So that's called a killdeer. And if we walk over towards them, if they've started to nest, he will, or she will do something really interesting. Watch her, because what she'll do is
run away from the nest to try with a broken wing.
With a broken wing. That's the killdeer. Yep, you've seen them before.
We have them in Montana.
Okay.
And what variety of vines do you have?
So what we grow mostly, this is the warmest, the most extreme temperatures in Niagara. So, and my favorite grape varieties are what we call Bordeaux Reds. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot. We're planting some Chardonnay. We had to take some out. And a hybrid grape variety called Vidal, which is an interesting one. But then from other growers, we were the second organic winery in Ontario. There's now 4. We're the only one that buys organic fruit from other growers. Because if I want to make the industry larger, if I want to encourage other people to convert to organics, their first question is always, who's going to buy my grapes? So we do. And none of the other ones do. So we're buying from the other side of Beamsville, Riesling, Pinot Noir, a little bit of Cabernet Franc, a little bit of Merlot, and a lot of Chardonnay. So we're buying almost everything that we're offered as far as fruit is concerned.
That's amazing.
But 10 years ago, a new style, which is actually the oldest style of wines, started to come back in Europe, called orange or skin contact white. There's no oranges in it. When you're making white wine, you harvest the grapes and you press them immediately. But that pressing requires a lot of technology: stainless steel, hydraulics, temperature control. It's technologically complicated. If you're making red wine, what you do, you harvest the grapes, you break some of the grapes, the old idea of foot stomping grapes, to get enough liquid to get the fermentation started. You let it run for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, and then when you open the bottom of the tank, most of the juice runs off by itself, no pressing. You take the stuff that's still got juice in it, the pomace, the skins and seeds, you put it in a press, you give it a light squeeze, and the rest of the juice comes out. Unlike white wines, where you've got to, have all this technology to do it. So in the old days, up until 100 years ago, if you made what they called white wine, it was actually made exactly the same way as reds, fermented on the skins, a little bit of tannin, a lot of character, but also quite an orange color. And so that had disappeared, and then was starting to appear places like Brooklyn and Manhattan, Paris, London, all of a sudden got interested in the whole natural wine, orange wine thing. And often at that point it was tied into the whole idea of organics and biodynamics and natural and whatever. So we played with it and started making it. We made 50 cases in 2014. We didn't know whether it was going to sell or not, but we figured we could drink 50 cases. When we put it on market, people said, how long is it going to last? And we would look at them and say, you're on the same journey as we are. In other words, we have no idea. It's now our biggest seller. We're making about 25% of the wine we make is orange wine.
Oh, wow.
Almost 4,000 cases a year. And that's where the Vidal is going. So instead of making ice wine, which was never our thing, we're now doing a couple of different, what we call orange wines. So, and that's what we're becoming well known for.
Very interesting. And
the whole thing has been an adventure. And
yes, and that's the best part.
Absolutely. That's the fun part. We try and think about everything that we do, because it's really easy not to think about it, but that's what's got into all of this trouble. So you've got to make sure that what's going into it in the first place is high quality. The Minnesota hybrids have different flavor profiles. They're not the standard sort of flavors that you're going to get out of what are called vinifera, which is what we're growing here, the French varietals. The Vidal that we use is a hybrid, so it's not a vinifera, not a pure vinifera. It's nice because it's got a really thick skin, and it's a little more winter hardy than the viniferas are.
So these vines are vinifera?
Yeah, this is Cabernet Sauvignon. So this block is the block that we call the witness block. What we did when we purchased the property, there was a bunch of Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc already planted. You buy them by clones. So you ask for this clone or that clone. There was a mixture of clones in the original. So what we did is, without looking to what the clones were, we cut cuttings off of the vines that we thought were the best ones. we mixed them all up, and then we had those cuttings made into these vines. So these are the ones that show best on this particular property. So I'm more used to corn. You'd go to Pioneer and they'd have 12 different hybrids that you can use. And we found that there was one hybrid which had gone out of favor most places, actually always worked best on our farm. It was just a little bit different from the neighbors, a little bit different from the people on the other side as well. So it's the same thing here. We went through, we picked the vines that we thought were the best, and so we did what's called a mass selection, not a clonal selection. So this is the witness. And
Very
then
nice.
when you go through, probably not the best description, the guys that are doing the pruning are real experts at doing it. But what you're doing is they're leaving 3 canes on the top. Vines want to grow like mad. We'll have a look at another field if we can find one that they haven't pruned. So they come up and then they pick 2 or 3 vines. They'll lay these ones down in the next few weeks, and they'll tie them along here, and then the upper buds will start to come up vegetatively, and then flowers on top of that.
That's really neat.
There's all sorts of different pruning styles, but the idea is that you want to keep, grapes want to be really vigorous. They want to grow all over the place, but if they do that, then you won't get any fruit. So you're pruning it, you're trying to control the yield. We tend to prune a little bit long, maybe leave a few extra buds, with the idea that once it actually starts to grow, if we've lost any buds, we can compensate. We'll come through once it's started to grow, and we'll probably prune a little bit more often and keep it down a little bit. But if you let it get too much green, then they won't ripen. If you leave too much fruit on there, it won't ripen. So it's a knife edge.
Very technical.
Yes, yeah, and these guys are really good.
How many vines would be in a clone?
So a clone is like saying a variety, Cab Sauv, Chardonnay,
Okay.
is like saying Granny Smith or okay.
Yes,
But then
that makes sense.
when you buy your Granny Smith, there's all sorts of different clones. Cornell does a lot of them. They work on. I would use one clone, and if I'm in the high desert at the far west end of Washington State, I would use a different clone.
And what variety of grapes are these?
So this is Vidal. This is the thick-skinned grape variety, which most people use for ice wine. And we planted it, we'll do it for ice wine. Well, we used to, and then we discovered we have a market for orange wine. So the orange wine, the thicker the grape skin, the more flavor it's got. And so we found that Vidal works really, really well, we think, for orange wines. So this now 100% goes into what's called our estate orange. And then we have another one from another grower, which is half Chardonnay and half Vidal.
How old are your vines?
So if I'm in California or Australia, vines will last 100 plus years. When you're on the borderline, like Ontario, certainly like Collingwood, they won't last as long. So 20, 25 years is getting to be pretty old. But there was an anthropologist went into the Black Forest in Germany, found this little old woodsman, and he had this, he'd been carving and cutting wood for years, and the anthropologist goes, "I really love your axe." And the woodcutter goes, "Yeah, it was my great-great-grandfather's." "Oh, wow, that's really cool." He says, "Yep, we've only replaced the head 4 times and the shaft 9 or 10 times. In other words, you're continually losing 1 or 2% per year. So you're getting that turnover, right? Maybe it's a 20-year-old vineyard, but 20% at least are new.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, we can normally we're hoping to get about 20 years or so.
Okay.
So these would be about halfway through their life. They're probably 10 years old. But we train them a little bit differently. They're much more vigorous than the Cabernet Sauvignon. They ripen earlier, so we can yield them higher. We can bring them up off the ground a little bit We may even be able to fence this off and put the sheep in here. We've got to net the vineyards. We've got to buy the nets, which are the black things on the top. And then we bring them down during the season to protect the fruit, and the sheep will graze between, whereas never goats. Everybody always says goats. Goats always graze up and over the nets, so it's always sheep.
Really?
But it's really kind of fun to get the sheep in here.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
What would be the timeline for the grapes, the growing season?
So they'll start, here they've pruned. So here's a big prune, and feel that. Can you feel it?
Oh, yes.
So they're running. It's that sap coming up. These could have been pruned a week ago because the sap is starting to dry. There's a lot of sugar in it. Not a huge amount of sugar, but you can taste it. Won't hurt. So things are running. They will break dormancy mid-April. They'll start to really show leaves towards the end of April. At that point, we're frost sensitive. We don't want any more frost. The flowers will normally come out in mid-May. In Canada, we're very strange because we celebrate Queen Victoria's birthday. And the reason is it's the 24th of May weekend, and everybody says 24th of May must be the magic number. The 24th of May is the last possible date you can get a full moon in May. And we expect our frost on the last full moon of May. So after the first full moon of May, it's safe to plant your tomatoes out, and it's also safe to have flowers and leaves coming out on the grapes. So the flowers will open. They're wind pollinated in usually about the longest day, the solstice. We have what's called verizon, where the grapes, if they're red, turn color. 1st of August to the middle of August, and then from there it's about 60 days to harvest. So we would normally expect we'll harvest whites if it's a hot year, maybe the last week of September, more likely to be early October, and reds we like to have finished by the end of October. Sometimes it'll be later, but the worry is that you've got all these bunches of grapes here. All of the sugar that the leaves are forming goes directly to the fruit. So what we really want is to have the fruit off 2 weeks before the leaves fall, so that the leaves then are producing all the sugar and it's going back into the vine.
Oh.
So we like it if we can get harvested by the 3rd or 4th week of October, and then have a week or 2 with leaves on them.
That's
afterwards.
incredible. I had no idea.
And then, so we harvest, and everything we do is hand harvested. We go out, I'll show you the boxes, but you can see every second row is where they put the cuttings, right? Because they can throw in both directions. We do the same thing with the grape boxes. So we'll run the grape boxes out we'll drop one every 5-6 feet, with the idea that they don't have to reach very far when they're cutting the grapes and putting them in the boxes. You can machined harvest, but we don't think it gives you as good fruit as hand harvesting, but it's a lot cheaper.
Yes.
And a lot quicker. So, that's one of the corners you can cut while you're trying to make cheap wine.
This is just a phenomenal operation you have.
If you can't taste the passion in the wine you're drinking the wrong wine. If you're not passionate about the business, it's a terrible business to try and make money at. So it's a business that people get in because they're passionate about. And it really is, it's a fabulous business to be in. So
and it's amazing to see your passion. It just it is incredible.
Absolutely.